Welcome back. This is Dr. Gu Zhenzhou. In the last session, we studied consumers' preference, probability, and the budget line. We used equations explaining budget constraints. And we found that actually the relative price and the real income affects consumers' choice. Now we'll continue to study about preference and the indifference curve of consumer. In this session, we can now first represent Lisa's preference as a map. An indifference curve is a line that shows combination of goods among which a consumer is indifferent. The figure illustrates Lisa's indifference curve. At point C, Lisa sees 2 movies and drink 6 cases of soda amounts. Moreover, Lisa can sort all possible combinations of goods into 3 goods: preferred to point C, not preferred to point C, and just as good as point C. These are propelled combination in the yellow highlighted area, not preferred combinations in the gray area in the graph. An indifference curve, the green line, draws all those points that Lisa says are just as good as point C. G is such a point. Lisa is indifferent between C and G, that she is indifferent either watch 2 movies and drink 6 cases of soda or watch 6 movies and drink 2 cases of soda. Then let's continue. We can first use a preference map to describe consumers' choices. A preference map is then a series of indifference curves. Call the indifference curve that we have just the thing I1. I0 is the indifference curve below I1. Then we can conclude that Lisa prefers any point on I1 to any point on I0, because she would have more soda and movies consumed compared to any situation on I0. Moreover, I2 is another indifference curve above I1. Lisa prefers any point on I2 to any point on I1. For example, Lisa prefers point G to either point C or point G. The higher the indifference curve, the more likely will Lisa prefer. To sum up, first, an indifference curve is a line that shows combination of goods among which a consumer is indifferent. Second, a preference map is a series of indifference curves. Third, higher indifference curve indicates higher preference. The marginal rate of substitution, MRS, measures the rates at which a person is willing to give up good Y to get an additional unit of good X, while at the same time remaining indifferent. That's remaining on the same indifference curve. If the indifference curve is relatively steep, MRS is high. In this case, the person is willing to give up a larger quantity of Y to get a bit more X. Also, if the indifference curve is relatively flat, MRS is low. In this case, the person is willing to give up a small quantity of Y to get more X. A diminishing marginal rate of substitution is a key assumption of consumer theory. It is saying that a general tendency for a person to be willing to give up less of good Y to get 1 more unit of good X, while at the same time remaining indifferent as the quantity of good X increases. Yes, the marginal rate of substitution can be measured by the magnitude of the slope of the indifference curve. The figure also shows the diminishing MRS of movies for soda. For example, at point C in the graph, Lisa is willing to give up 10 cases of soda to see 5 more movies. Her MIS at this point is 2. And at point G, Lisa is willing to give up 4.5 cases. And at point G, Lisa is willing to give up 4.5 cases of soda to see 9 more movies. Her MIS here is a half. The slope represents consumers' willingness to substitute. Then the shape of the indifference curve reveals the degree of substitutability between 2 goods. As shown, these 3 figures show the indifference curves for ordinary goods, perfect substitutes, and perfect complements. In particular, figure A is for ordinary goods, what we have seen for Lisa in our example. Figure B reveals perfect substitutes, which a straight line represent 2 goods whenever they can be exchanged to each other. And at last, figure C, the L-shaped indifference curve are the most difficult substitution between 2 goods, or we may see no substitutability at all. Alright, let's stop here, and thank you very much for your watching.